Over 17 years ago, Gears of War premiered, and after a string of early successes, the series has faced some ups and downs. I'm Mark from Digital Dissection. I own way too much Gears of War merchandise, and today we're revisiting the hit Xbox series. Before we take cover and fire the Hammer of Dawn, be sure to subscribe and click the bell to be notified of new videos and more pop culture content on this channel, where we're always dissecting. We've revisited some varied eras of gaming so far in this series, but the dawn of the early 2000s marks some major intellectual properties making their debuts, as a new generation of consoles, notably the Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3, began their hold on the gaming marketplace. While I've touched on Assassin's Creed and Fallout during this time frame, one franchise that seemingly popped out of the earth was Gears of War. No pun intended. Developed by Epic Games and published by Microsoft. We're pretty sure Microsoft needs no introduction, right? Small independent company. But Epic Games is the company behind Unreal, including the Unreal Engine, which you might have noticed is a robust system that has powered an overwhelming amount of gaming experiences. The development company founded by Tim Sweeney would go on to produce Fortnite, and also own Psyonix, creator of Rocket League. Epic Games had a mega hit on their hands with Unreal Tournament, and during the early 2000s it was actually hard not to be interested in this game. I was drawn to it based on the fact that saying headshot was really fun. But it was an easy game to sink literal hours into, and around 2000 to 2001, Epic had already begun building a concept that acted as the earliest days of a then unnamed Gears of War prototype. The concept, however, was very much in line with similar tournament-style games of this moment, where players could pick soldiers, mech suits, and play in a closed arena, where opponents were either other players or pre-selected bots. Epic, however, would hit pause on the investment of this development effort, instead doubling down on Unreal Tournament, which in fairness was a great idea, as the series was selling millions of units and gaining worldwide traction. By the time Epic realigned on the proto-Gears of War concept, gaming experiences were beginning to shift away from tournament-style experiences and more towards narrative-driven games, which is odd because we rubber-banded back again in the 2020s. However, this meant creating a game that focused less on being a competitor and instead meant an experience built around influences from other titles of this time. Epic Games lead developer Cliff Bleszinski cited three in particular: Resident Evil 4, Kill Switch, and Bionic Commando. These games had third-person over-the-shoulder mechanics, cover-based tactics, and moving strategically from one position to the next. The concept quickly gained steam, and by 2005 was showcased as an unnamed Xbox exclusive at the Game Developers Conference. The early hype was real, and for good reason. Gears of War played like an interactive movie, with cinematics, music, motion capture acting, and seamless gameplay that wove in between its biggest moments. Its story was also built on an interesting premise. Gears of War takes place on an Earth-like planet named Sera, and like the real Earth, there is a major problem amongst its inhabitants towards material scarcity. The discovery of a fuel source known as emulsion further exacerbates relations between its main factions: the Coalition of Ordered Governments, or COG, and the Union of Independent Republics, or the UIR. Long story short, the COG prevails in the ensuing war, but its victory is short-lived when a subterranean alien race named the Locusts emerge and immediately wipe out 25% of humanity. Admittedly, a lot happens before you even press start, but that's one key strength of Gears of War. What may look like a group of muscle-bound bros pew-pewing their way across a sci-fi landscape actually ends up being a fairly gripping story, as this main campaign focuses around former COG soldier Marcus Phoenix, imprisoned for a sentence of 40 years after deserting his orders in an attempt to save his father. As far as sci-fi goes, the stakes are pretty standard, since everything seems to want to wipe out humanity. And we put pineapple on pizza, we kind of have it coming. However, Gears of War as a concept excels, due to its well-paced storytelling, well-manufactured cover-based combat, and revelations seemingly around every corner. Now, if you don't want spoilers for this series, we highly recommend skipping the rest of the video. No, seriously, last chance, don't play around with this. Now, storytelling is ultimately what sets Gears of War apart from many competitors during the early 2000s, as we've previously discussed how some games might deliver great gameplay, but narratives can struggle, and many of us will overlook it because, well, we're dedicated to the relationship. We put a lot of time in. Gears of War is different because it was always meant to be a massive concept worthy of cinema, and from its earliest days, Cliff Bleszinski intended for it to be adapted to another medium. Across its earliest entries, it truly balanced a story worth investing in, as we don't just get the breadcrumbs of Marcus Phoenix's past, but also that of his squad mates, and one in particular, Dominic Santiago, stands out amongst the rest. Dominic and Marcus had been friends for an incredibly long period of time, and as such their relationship constitutes a large portion of the first 3 games in the series. Marcus's family dynamic has admittedly been split for many years, but Dominic had a wife and sons, with his children dead after Emergence Day, and his wife went missing shortly after. With Dominic and Marcus never giving up hope over their lost families, these threads weave in and out of the nucleus of Gears of War's earliest days. But over time, these plot decisions not only shape some of the series' greatest moments, but possibly video game history. Dominic's search for his wife Maria comes to a head after the events of Gears of War 1, and while the first game featured some major gut punches, Gears of War 2 from its earliest moments showcases how weary war settings can be. What's built up throughout Gears 2 is the idea that Maria Santiago is still alive, and that based on the ongoing war efforts of the COG army, there's a chance Dom can find her while they attack the Locust head-on. Now this is an incredibly important moment for gaming history, as Dominic finds Maria, but she is far too close to death to be able to save. The landmark moment showcased several strengths of motion capture, acting abilities from its actors John DiMaggio and Carlos Ferro, and proved to millions of people that critically emotional moments are possible in the medium of video games. We had a chance to sit down with Carlos Ferro in 2022, and he detailed the experience as intense, strenuous, and one that took an emotional toll on the entire cast and crew while filming the sequence. It's easy to see why. The pain conveyed by everyone involved in the scene is palpable, and yes, I had very sweaty eyes after playing it. Did this sequence cause you to sob uncontrollably? Let us know in the comments. Over the course of the series' first 3 games, moments like these were placed at just the right times, and its inspirations from the series' band of brothers was executed at a very high level. So well executed, in fact, that when Dominic Santiago sacrifices himself for his fellow teammates in Gears of War 3, the moment was immediately felt across all of video games. Some of us are still getting over it. Okay, fine, I'm still getting over it. At face value, though, if you looked at the early hype for Gears of War and just thought it was rugged, attractive dudes in space armor, I get it. Sometimes it's easy to hate things that are successful. However, the earliest days of this franchise were masterfully executed, even if the Xbox 360 was a poorly manufactured product that constantly broke. Like many franchises, however, emotional highs can be hard to match, and later entries in the Gears of War series struggled to capture the same enthusiasm, as the first generation of characters took a back seat, replaced by Marcus Phoenix's son JD in Gears 4, and later one of his squad mates, Kate Diaz, in Gears 5. While I've had the chance to play 4 and 5, they're admittedly not as interesting to me as the initial trilogy was. JD is a fairly vanilla character, while Kate actually has a fairly compelling backstory that involves some of the earliest research and plot threads surrounding the Locust Horde. For many, this is the crossroads of Gears of War, as the creative team shifted after the first 3 games. A new developer called the Coalition would step in, and Cliff Bleszinski, amongst several other key personnel, were no longer involved once Epic Games sold the rights for Gears of War to Microsoft. Bleszinski, in an interview with IGN, seemed to mirror the gripes many gamers had with the franchise after the first trilogy, stating that the creative team after this point couldn't recapture the spirit of the original games, and how later games made you choose the fate of certain characters, complicating series lore and its ongoing canon. Personally, I'm somewhere in the middle of the criticisms of Gears of War, as it seems like there's a few possibilities here. The OG trilogy had a great concept and still holds up to this day. But if I were newly introduced to the series and had never played the first 3, there's still quite a bit of entertainment value, even if Gears 4 and 5 suffer slightly in the delivery of their narratives. The strength of the series, however, has always been that Gears manages to be a game capable of strong action-based gameplay, stories that emotionally test its characters, and finding fleeting moments of hope in a landscape with more than enough depressing elements. While the future of the franchise is a bit up in the air after its last installment in 2019, it may return as an open-world game in 2024 or 2025. It's hard to know exactly what direction Microsoft will choose to take it from here. But even if you don't agree with where the franchise went over time, it's hard to argue that it wasn't a major influence on the gaming industry during a time when countless studios struggled to tell compelling stories. But what do you think? Did you play the entire Gears of War series, or did you lose steam with it over time? Let us know in the comments. And as always, thank you for watching this retrospective as we explored the Gears of War franchise. Stay tuned for more retrospectives on this channel, and if you want to see more, we're always open to suggestions. And until next time, pop culture nerds, keep on dissecting.